The medical room was cold and white. Commander Veltar sat on a metal chair that was too small for his large body. His 6 arms moved slowly as he tried to find a comfortable position. The scars on his dark green skin still hurt from the plasma burns. His 4 eyes looked tired and scared. Dr. Zareth sat across from him. She was smaller than most of her people, with blue skin and silver hair. Her hands shook a little as she turned on the recording device. She had heard stories about what happened in the war, but she wanted to hear it from someone who was there. "Please, start when you are ready," she said in a soft voice. Veltar made a clicking sound with his mouth parts. It was something his people did when they were nervous. He looked at the recording device for a long time before he began to speak. "My name is Commander Veltar of the Corvain Imperial Fleet. I was there when we first met the humans. I was there. When everything went wrong," his voice was deep but quiet. "I am the only one left from my ship." "Maybe the only one who can tell you what really happened?" The doctor nodded and waited for him to continue. "We thought we knew about war," Veltar said. "The Corvaini Empire has been fighting for 300 years. We have conquered 47 worlds. We know how to fight. We know how other species fight, but humans." He stopped talking, and his 4 eyes closed. "Humans are different." Veltar told her about the first reports that came to the Corvani homeworld. The humans had just learned how to travel faster than light. Their ships were small and used old technology. They had simple weapons that shot metal bullets instead of energy beams. The Corvani War Council looked at the reports and laughed. "Supreme Admiral Kethmos called them children playing with toys," Veltar said. "He said we would defeat them in 6 days, maybe less." The humans only had 12 ships in their entire fleet. We had 300. The first battle happened at a small human mining colony called New Brisbane. 3 Corvani ships found a human cargo ship there. The ship was called Lucky Strike. It was old and slow, with thick metal sides and big engines that made too much noise. Captain Jake Morrison was the human in charge of that ship, Veltar said. Our sensors showed he had 20 crew members. Our 3 ships had 60 warriors each. He sent a message telling him to surrender. All species surrender when they cannot win. It is logical. But Captain Morrison did not surrender. Instead, he did something that no one expected. He turned his ship around and flew straight at the lead Corvani vessel. At first, the Corvani thought he was trying to run away in the wrong direction. "We did not understand," Veltar said. "Our captain, War Leader Morthic, ordered us to fire warning shots. He thought the human was confused. Maybe their navigation system was broken." The Lucky Strike kept flying toward them. It was moving faster. Now, much faster than a cargo ship should be able to move. The Corvani sensors detected that the human ship's engines were running at dangerous levels. They were pushing the engines so hard that they might explode, and we realized what he was doing, Veltar said. His voice got quieter. He was going to crash into us. On purpose. We fired our weapons at his ship, but he did not try to avoid them. He just kept coming. The human ship hit the Corvani vessel at full speed. The Lucky Strike's cargo hold was full of mining explosives. When the 2 ships crashed together, everything exploded. Both ships were destroyed instantly. All 20 humans died. All 60 Corvani warriors died. War Leader Morthic sent a message to our fleet before he died, Veltar said. Just 3 words. They chose death. We did not understand what he meant at first. The other 2 Corvani ships stayed away from the wreckage. They sent the report back to the main fleet. The admirals read it 3 times before they believed it. A human captain had killed himself and his entire crew just to destroy one enemy ship. It made no sense. "We have fought many species, Veltar," explained to the doctor. "The Zelanti fight for honor. The Breakter fight for territory. The Hyenids fight for food. All of them want to live. All of them surrender when they cannot win. But humans." He stopped and made the clicking sound again. "Humans fight like they want to die." The Corvani War Council met to discuss this strange behavior. They decided that Captain Morrison must have been crazy. Maybe all humans were a little crazy, but Surely they would act normally once they understood how powerful the Corvani Empire was. Supreme Admiral Kethmos sent a message to the human government. It was a simple message that explained how the war would work. The humans could surrender now and become slaves, or they could fight and be destroyed. Every species had been given this choice. Every species had chosen to surrender. The human response came back in 2 days. It was from someone called Admiral Patricia Stone. The message was short: "Come and take us." That was when we knew something was wrong, Veltar said. Admiral Stone did not ask for terms. She did not try to negotiate. She did not even ask us why we wanted to fight. She just said, "Come and take us," like she was inviting us to dinner. The Corvani fleet began moving toward human space. It was the largest force the Empire had ever assembled. 300 warships, 50,000 warriors, and the best weapons in the galaxy. They expected the war to last 1 week, but as they traveled, more reports came in from the border worlds. Small human ships were attacking Corvani supply lines. These ships did not try to capture territory or steal resources. They just attacked and died. Every single human ship fought until it was destroyed. None of them ever surrendered. The reports confused our admirals, Veltar said. In normal war, you try to save your ships and your people. You retreat when you cannot win. You surrender when you are defeated. But humans never retreated. They never surrendered. Just died fighting. Dr. Zeroth looked at her notes. I did. Your people think about stopping the war? Veltar's 4 eyes opened wide. Stop. We are Corvani. We do not stop. Besides, we were winning every battle. Yes, the humans fought strangely, but they were losing ships much faster than we were. Every engagement was a victory for us. But something else was happening that the Corvani did not understand yet. After each battle, the surviving Corvani warriors would talk to each other about what they had seen. They talked about the human faces they saw through the view screens just before the explosions. The humans were not screaming or crying like other species did when they were about to die. They were smiling, Veltar said. Even when their ships were breaking apart, even when they knew they would die in a few seconds, the humans were smiling, like they knew something we did not know. The doctor stopped writing and looked up at him. What do you think they knew? Veltar made the clicking sound again, louder this time. I think they knew that we would never understand what was coming. Next. Dr. Zareth changed the recording device to a new data chip. Commander Veltar had been quiet for several minutes. His 4 eyes stared at the white wall, but she could tell he was seeing something else, something from the war. The second phase began at Meridian Prime, Veltar said suddenly. It was a human colony world with 5 million people. He thought it would be easy to capture. General Lisa Carter commanded their defense forces. She had 50,000 soldiers. We had 200,000. The Corvani fleet arrived at Meridian Prime expecting a normal siege. In every previous war, the defending army would build strong walls and wait behind them. They would fight from safe positions and try to make the attack cost too much. When the attackers got too close, the defenders would surrender to save lives. We landed our forces on the northern continent, Veltar continued. The humans had built a few defensive positions around their main city. It looked normal. Our generals were pleased. They thought the humans were finally acting like a sensible species. But on the first night, something happened that no Corvani had ever experienced before. Sergeant Danny Rodriguez led a small team of 10 human soldiers. They came into the Corvani camp while everyone was sleeping. But they did not try to destroy weapons or steal information. Instead, they did something much worse. So they left things for us to find, Veltar said. His voice got quieter. Strange things, disturbing things. The humans had placed small recording devices throughout the camp. When the Corvani soldiers found them the next morning, they turned them on. Recordings played sounds that no Corvani ever wanted to hear. Human voices laughing and screaming at the same time. The laughter sounded happy, but the screaming sounded like torture. The sounds played together in a way that made Corvani's stomachs feel sick, but that was not the worst part, Veltar said. They also left drawings. The drawings were made with something that looked like Corvani blood, but smelled different. The pictures showed Corvani bodies with wounds that could not exist in real life. Arms bent in impossible directions. Holes in places where holes could not be. The humans had drawn these things very carefully, with great attention to detail. Lieutenant, Amy Foster's team did something even stranger. He captured war leader Jektos while he was checking the camp borders. Kept him for 3 days, then brought him back. He was not hurt physically. His body had no cuts or burns. But something was wrong with his mind. Jektos would not stop talking about human faces, Veltar said. He said the humans had shown him pictures of his family back on the home world. Pictures of his mate and his children. But in the pictures, the humans had drawn themselves standing next to his family, just standing there, smiling. Jektos kept saying that the humans knew things about his family that only he should know. They knew his mate's favorite food. They knew which games his children liked to play. They knew the songs his mate sang when she was happy. But they never said how they knew these things. The humans never hurt Jektos, Veltar explained. They just talked to him. They asked him questions about Corvani culture, about our families. About our fears, they were very polite and friendly. But Jektos said their eyes were wrong, like they were studying him the way a scientist studies an insect. More strange things began happening throughout the Corvani camps. Human teams would sneak in at night, but instead of attacking, they would rearrange things. They would move equipment to different places. They would change the settings on computers. They would put notes written in perfect Corvani language that said things like, "We were here while you slept, and we know where you keep your food." Major, Ben Clark's engineering teams were doing something even more disturbing to the planet itself. They had found ways to change the water supply without making it poisonous. Instead, they added chemicals that made Corvani soldiers feel strange emotions. Fear when they should feel brave. It's sadness when they should feel happy. Anger when they should feel calm. Our medical teams could not understand what was happening, Veltar said. The water was safe to drink. It would not make us sick or kill us. But it made us feel human emotions, emotions that Corvani bodies are not supposed to have. The humans also changed the buildings in their cities. When Corvani forces entered empty human settlements, they found that the humans had rebuilt the structures in specific ways. If the Corvani looked at the buildings from the air, the empty spaces between them spelled out messages in Corvani writing, messages that said things like, "Your children miss you, and why are you so far from home?" Captain Nicole Hayes led what the humans called evacuation operations. The Corvani watched through their telescopes as long lines of human civilians left their cities. The humans looked scared and defeated. They carried bags and walked slowly, like refugees from every other war the Corvani had seen. Our generals were happy, Veltar said. Finally, the humans were acting normally. They were running away instead of fighting. We followed the refugee columns to capture them. The evacuation routes were traps. The humans had spent months preparing every road, every bridge, every rest stop. When the Corvani forces tried to capture the refugees, the roads exploded, but not in ways meant to kill. The explosions were designed to trap Corvani soldiers in specific locations. Once trapped, the soldiers discovered that the humans had built speakers into the ground. The speakers played recordings of Corvani children calling for their parents. The voices sounded exactly like the children of the soldiers who were trapped there. Each soldier heard his own child's voice asking, "When are you coming home? Why did you leave us?" "How did they know?" Veltar asked the doctor. "How did the humans know what our children sounded like? We never told them our names. We never gave them access to our personal records. But they knew." The refugee columns were not refugees at all, were human soldiers dressed as civilians. Captain Hayes had trained them to act scared and helpless until the Corvani got close. Then they would reveal weapons and attack. But even then, they did not try to kill as many enemies as possible. Instead, they aimed for specific body parts that would cause pain, but not death. They wanted us to go back to our camps, Veltar realized. They wanted us to tell the other soldiers what we had seen. They wanted us to spread fear, the worst. Incident happened when Sergeant Kevin Turner's intelligence team infiltrated the main Corvani communication center. They did not destroy the equipment or steal secrets. Instead, they changed the settings so that every message sent to the Corvani homeworld included small additions. Personal messages from soldiers to their families were changed to include phrases like, "The humans say hello to my mate," or something, "is watching us while we sleep." Official military reports were altered to include detailed descriptions of Corvani, family traditions that humans should not have known about. The responses from our homeworld were confused and frightened, Veltar said. Our families began asking how humans knew about private Corvani customs. Our government wanted to know how humans had access to personal information about our warriors. But no one could answer these questions. The humans never explained how they knew so much about Corvani society. They just continued to demonstrate their knowledge in small, terrifying ways. They would call individual soldiers by their childhood nicknames. They would reference conversations that soldiers had with their mates before leaving for the war. They would ask about pets that soldiers had owned years ago. We realized that the humans were not trying to win battles, Veltar said. They were trying to get inside our heads. Every strange thing they did was designed to make us think about home, about our families, about things that had nothing to do with war. Psychological pressure began affecting Corvane military performance. Soldiers started making mistakes because they were thinking about their families instead of focusing on their duties. Officers spent time wondering how humans knew personal details about their lives instead of planning attacks. Warriors began requesting transfers away from human territory. General Carter never attacked our main force directly, Veltar explained. She just kept doing small, strange things that made us question everything we thought we knew about war, about humans, about ourselves. Dr. Zareth looked at her notes. The behaviors Veltar described were unlike anything in known military history. What happened to the human civilians? Well, the real ones. Veltar's 4 eyes closed again. We never found them. 5 million people just disappeared. No bodies, no signs of where they went, like they had never existed at all. But sometimes, our patrols would find evidence that someone was still living in the empty cities. Fresh food in houses, warm beds. Children's toys moved to different rooms. The humans had made their entire planet into a psychological weapon. He continued. Every building, every road, every tree had been changed to make us feel uncomfortable, to make us think about things we did not want to think about. They turned the war into a test of our sanity instead of our strength. The doctor stopped writing. Did your people consider retreating from Meridian Prime? No, Veltar said quickly. We were still winning. We controlled most of the planet. We had more ships and more soldiers. The humans could not defeat us in direct combat. He paused. But they were defeating us in ways we did not understand, ways we had no defense against. Commander Veltar stopped talking and drank some water from a small cup. His hands shook as he held it. Dr. Zareth noticed that he was sweating, even though the room was cold. She waited patiently for him to continue. The final battle happened. At a place called Titan's Gate, Veltar said. It was a narrow passage between 2 star systems. Whoever controlled it would control the war. Admiral Jorthok commanded our armada. 300 ships. The largest force in Corvani history. Admiral Patricia Stone commanded the human fleet. She had only 80 ships, and most of them were smaller than the Corvani vessels. The humans were clearly outmatched. Every military calculation showed that they would lose quickly. Admiral Jorthok was confident, Veltar continued. He had studied human tactics from the previous battles. He knew they would try psychological tricks. He prepared his crews for strange behavior. He thought we were ready. The human fleet arrived at Titan's Gate 3 days before the Corvani. Instead of taking defensive positions, they scattered across the entire star system. Some ships hid behind asteroids. Others positioned themselves near the system's gas giant. A few moved so far away that they were barely visible on sensors. This confused our admiral, Veltar said. In normal space combat, you keep your ships together. You concentrate your firepower. You protect your weaker vessels. But the humans spread out like they wanted to be picked off one by one.
Ow.
When the Corvani fleet arrived, Admiral Jorthok expected the humans to group together for a final battle. Instead, something completely different happened. The human ships began attacking things that had nothing to do with the battle, Captain. Ryan Mitchell commanded a group of human destroyers. Instead of fighting Corvani ships, they started destroying asteroids. But they were not using the asteroids as weapons. They were breaking them into millions of small pieces and spreading the debris across space. "We thought they were trying to create cover," Veltar explained. "Asteroid debris can hide ships from sensors. But they were making too much. Debris much more than they needed for hiding." Commander Helen Davis led a squadron of cargo ships that had been converted into weapons. These ships were slow and poorly armed. In any normal battle, they would stay far away from the fighting. Instead, they flew directly at Corvani supply vessels. But these converted cargo ships did not try. To destroy the supply vessels completely, they rammed into specific parts of the ships: the engines, communication arrays, the food storage areas. They disabled the Corvani ships without killing all the crew members. The damaged crews sent distress signals, Veltar said. They reported that the human pilots were laughing as they crashed their ships. "Laughing and saying things like this is for our children, and remember us to your families." The strangest behavior came from Lieutenant Colonel Steve Parker and his Marine units. They used small attack ships to board Corvani vessels. Actions were common in space warfare, but the humans did not fight like normal boarding parties. "They did not try to capture our ships," Veltar said. "They did not try to reach our command centers or destroy our weapons. Instead, they went to unimportant places: the kitchens, the sleeping quarters, the recreation areas. Once inside these areas, the human Marines began destroying things that had no military value. They broke furniture. They tore up personal photographs that Corvani crew members kept in their lockers. They damaged musical instruments and games that soldiers used during their free time, but the worst thing they did was change the ship's atmospheric systems. They released chemicals into the air that made Corvani crew members feel human emotions even more strongly than before. Fear became terror. Sadness became despair. Confusion became panic. And they played music," Veltar said. His voice was barely a whisper now. Human music, every speaker on the ship. Music that sounded happy and cheerful, but somehow made us feel sick inside. The human Marines also left behind recording devices in every room they visited. These devices would activate randomly over the following days. It played sounds of human children singing songs, human families having dinner conversations, human couples saying goodnight to each other. Normal, peaceful sounds that somehow felt threatening when you heard them on a warship far from home. The psychological effect was immediate. Veltar continued. "Our crew members began thinking about their own families, about their own children, about normal life back on the homeworld. But instead of making them feel good, these thoughts made them feel guilty and afraid. The humans had also hacked into the ship's computer systems, but not to steal information or cause damage. Instead, they changed small details in the crew records. They added notes about crew members' families that were impossibly accurate, information about children's birthdays, details about mates' favorite foods, descriptions of pets and hobbies, and private jokes. How did they know these things?" Veltar asked the doctor, just as he had asked himself thousands of times. "We never told them. Our security protocols were perfect. But somehow, they knew everything about our personal lives." The battle continued for 6 days, but it was unlike any battle in galactic history. The humans never tried to achieve a decisive victory. Instead, they focused on making the Corvani forces feel uncomfortable and homesick. Every attack was designed to remind Corvani soldiers of something they missed from home. Captain Laura Martinez led a group of fighters that attacked Corvani ships with unusual timing. They would strike just before meal times, when soldiers were thinking about food, or just before sleep periods, when crew members were thinking about rest and comfort. The attacks were not meant to cause maximum damage, they were meant to interrupt moments when soldiers felt most human. "We started receiving strange messages from our own ships," Veltar said. Crew members reported having dreams about humans. Dreams where humans were living in their houses back home, sitting at their dinner tables, playing with their children. The dreams felt so real that some soldiers woke up confused about where they were. Admiral Stone began broadcasting messages directly to the Corvani fleet, but she did not make threats or demands. Instead, She spoke about Corvani culture in perfect detail. She described traditional Corvani holidays. She explained the meaning behind Corvani art. She even sang Corvani children's songs. She knew our culture better than many of our own people, Veltar said. She spoke about ancient Corvani traditions that only scholars studied. She referenced historical events that happened thousands of years ago. She quoted poetry that our children learned in school. But Admiral Stone did not use this knowledge to insult or mock the Corvani. Instead, she used it to show respect and understanding. She praised Corvani achievements. She admired Corvani art and philosophy. She spoke about the beauty of the Corvani homeworld and the strength of Corvani families. This made everything worse, Veltar explained. If she had been cruel or threatening, we could have hated her. We could have used our anger to fight harder, as she was kind and respectful. She made us feel like she genuinely cared about our people and our culture. The final message from Admiral Stone was the one that broke the Corvani fleet's morale. Completely, she did not threaten to destroy them. She did not demand their surrender. Instead, she made a simple request. She asked us to go home, Veltar said. She said that our families missed us. She said that our children needed their parents. She said that war was keeping us away from the people we loved most. She said that the humans did not want to hurt us. They just wanted us to leave so that we could return to our families. And then she did something that no enemy commander had ever done in the history of warfare. She provided detailed information about every Corvani soldier in the fleet. Their names, their family members, their home addresses, their children's ages, their mates' occupations. She knew everything about everyone. She told war leader Kevmos that his daughter had lost her first tooth while he was away. She told fighter pilot Naltok that his mate was pregnant with their second child. She told engineer Morvel that his elderly father was sick and asking for him. The information was completely accurate. The Corvani command confirmed every detail by sending messages back to their homeworld. Somehow, the humans had gained access to personal information about thousands of individual soldiers and their families. But she did not use this information to threaten our families, Veltar said. She used it to remind us that we had families who cared about us. People who wanted us to come home safely. Lives that were more important than any war. Admiral Jorthok tried to maintain discipline, but it was impossible. Soldiers throughout the fleet began requesting permission to return home. They were not afraid of dying in battle. They were afraid of staying away from their families any longer. They were afraid that the humans understood their lives better than they understood themselves. The retreat began on the 7th day, Veltar said. Not because we were losing the military battle, but because our soldiers had lost the will to fight. They wanted to go home. They wanted to hug their children and tell their mates that they loved them. They wanted to return to normal life. Doctor? Zaroff stopped writing and looked at the alien commander. But you stayed. Why did you not retreat with the others? Dr. Zareth turned off the recording device and changed to a new data chip. This was the 4th one she had used during Commander Veltar's testimony. She could see that talking about these memories was causing him pain, but she needed to hear the rest of the story. What happened after the Corvani fleet retreated? She asked gently. Veltar made the clicking sound with his mouth parts. It was louder now, more urgent. I convinced Admiral Jorthok to let me stay behind with a small research. Team 12 volunteers who also wanted to understand what the humans had done to us. We hid our ship in the asteroid field and watched. Remaining human ships did not celebrate their victory, did not claim territory or plant flags on captured vessels. Instead, they began doing something that confused Veltar even more. They started cleaning up the battlefield. Human teams went to every damaged Corvani ship and began repairing the life support systems. They rescued wounded Corvani soldiers and gave them medical treatment. They collected the bodies of dead warriors and prepared them for proper burial according to Corvani customs. They knew our funeral rites, Veltar said with amazement in his voice. They performed the ceremonies correctly. They spoke the ancient words in perfect Corvani. They treated our dead with more respect than some of our own people would have. Captain, Laura Martinez personally oversaw these operations. She made sure that every Corvani body was prepared properly. She ensured that personal belongings were gathered and labeled for return to families. She even had her crews create memorial recordings. where human soldiers spoke about the bravery of their former enemies. This made no sense to us, Veltar continued. In every war we had ever fought, the winners took prizes from the losers. They claimed ships and weapons. They took prisoners for information. But the humans just fixed our ships and sent our people home. But Veltar's research team discovered something disturbing while they watched the humans work. The medical treatment and rescue operations were not simple acts of kindness. There were opportunities for the humans to gather more information. Colonel Maria Santos led a team of human scientists who studied every rescued Corvani soldier. They measured their physical responses to different stimuli. They recorded their emotional reactions to various sounds and images. They tested how Corvani biology responded to different chemicals and environments. They were not torturing our people, Veltar explained. They were studying them, like scientists studying insects. They wanted to understand everything about how Corvani minds and bodies worked. The humans had portable laboratories on their ships. In these labs, they analyzed Corvani blood samples, brain patterns, and genetic material. They studied how Corvani senses worked. They tested which colors, sounds, and smells caused the strongest emotional responses in Corvani subjects. Sergeant Kevin Turner's intelligence team had been collecting data throughout the entire war. They had recordings of thousands of Corvani conversations. They had samples of Corvani food, clothing, and personal items. They had detailed observations of Corvani behavior in different situations. We realized that the humans had been treating the war like a research project, Veltar said. Every battle was an experiment. Every psychological attack was a test. They were not trying to destroy us. They were trying to understand us completely. Humans had developed detailed profiles of Corvani psychology, biology, and culture. They knew exactly which emotional triggers worked best on different types of Corvani personalities. They had created a complete map of Corvani's social structure, family relationships, and cultural values. They knew things about us that we did not know about ourselves, Veltar continued. They had discovered patterns in our behavior that our own scientists had never noticed. They understood our motivations better than we did. Admiral Stone sent a final message to the hidden Corvani research ship. She did not threaten them or order them to leave. Instead, she invited them to meet with her personally. She said she wanted to have a conversation. Against all logic, we accepted, Veltar said. We had to know how they had done it. The meeting took place on a neutral cargo ship halfway between the human and Corvani positions. Admiral Stone came alone, except for 2 guards. She was smaller than most humans, with gray hair and kind eyes. She looked like someone's grandmother, not a military leader. She offered us food and drink, Veltar remembered. Corvane food prepared correctly. She had learned how to cook our traditional dishes. She even knew which spices we preferred. Admiral Stone began the conversation by apologizing for the war. She said that humans had not wanted to fight, but they had needed to defend themselves. She explained that her people had studied the Corvani Empire's history and knew that surrender would mean slavery or death. But then she said something that made my blood freeze, Veltar continued. She said that humans had been preparing for our arrival for over a year. The humans had detected the Corvani fleet while it was still months away from human space. Instead of building more weapons or recruiting more soldiers, they had done something unprecedented. They had begun studying Corvani culture and psychology. Human scientists had analyzed every piece of information they could find about the Corvani Empire. They had studied Corvani art, literature, music, and history. They had examined recordings of Corvani communications. They had even infiltrated Corvani computer networks to gather personal information about individual soldiers. Admiral Stone showed us the files they had created, Veltar said. Thousands of documents about Corvani society. Detailed psychological profiles of our species. Complete analyses of our cultural values and family structures. They knew us better than our own government did. But the most disturbing revelation was yet to come. Admiral Stone explained that humans approached warfare as a form of applied psychology. They did not want to kill their enemies if they could avoid it. Instead, they preferred to understand their enemies so completely that fighting became unnecessary. She said that humans believe every species has emotional weaknesses, Veltar continued. fears and desires that can be exploited without causing physical harm? The key is to understand the enemy's psychology perfectly. The humans had identified that Corvani soldiers were most vulnerable to emotions related to family and home. They had discovered that Corvani culture placed enormous emphasis on family bonds and social connections. They had learned that separation from loved ones was the most effective way to break Corvani morale. Admiral Stone told us that humans call this emotional warfare, Veltar said. They use the enemy's own feelings against them. They make soldiers think about things that will weaken their resolve to fight. But the truly terrifying part was what Admiral Stone said next. She explained that humans had developed these techniques by studying themselves first. They'd analyzed their own psychological weaknesses and learned how to defend against emotional manipulation. She said that humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years, Veltar continued. They have tried every possible way to hurt and control each other. They understand psychology and emotion better than any other species, because they have used these weapons against themselves. Admiral Stone showed them examples of human history. Wars where humans had used propaganda, psychological torture, and emotional manipulation against other humans. Conflicts where the winning side had been the one that better understood their enemy's mental weaknesses. She said that when humans fight against other species, they simply apply the same techniques they have perfected against each other, Veltar explained. They study the enemy's culture and psychology, then find ways to use that knowledge as a weapon. The most chilling moment came when Admiral Stone asked Veltar about his own family. She knew the names of his mate and children. She knew where they lived and what they did for work. She knew their hobbies, their fears, and their dreams. She did not threaten them, Veltar said quickly. She just wanted me to understand that humans could reach anyone, anywhere, anytime they chose to. She said that humans had already infiltrated every major species in the galaxy. They were studying all of us, learning our weaknesses, preparing for future conflicts. Admiral Stone explained that humanity's greatest weapon was not their technology or their military strength. It was their curiosity about how other minds worked. Humans were naturally interested in understanding different forms of consciousness and intelligence. She said that humans see every new species as a puzzle to be solved, Veltar continued. They want to understand how we think, how we feel, how we make decisions. And once they understand us completely, they can predict our behavior and manipulate our emotions. The meeting ended with Admiral Stone making an offer. The humans would share their research about Corvani psychology with the Corvani government. They would teach Corvani scientists how to defend against emotional warfare. In exchange, the Corvani Empire would agree never to attack human territory again. She said that humans preferred to have friends rather than enemies, Veltar said. But if other species insisted on being enemies, humans would study them until they found ways to defeat them without firing a shot. Dr. Zareth stopped writing and looked at the alien commander. Did your people accept this offer?